I want to take just a moment to talk about one of Robert Frost's most popular poems, The Road Not Taken. You will see that poem on your screen right now. And there are a lot of things that you can read about The Road Not Taken. If you read around, you'll run across claims that Robert Frost meant it kind of lightly, didn't mean for it to be taken as such a serious poem as many of us do. You can certainly read and certainly study and look at all the ways in which it's constructed. You can look for the kind of rhythm involved and those things, and those are all very important pieces. But I'm going to talk about something a little more fundamental for a moment. I'm going to talk about the meaning of the poem. Just the meaning. Now, The Road Not Taken is a poem that many people like to use at particularly notable times in people's lives. And as we know from The Road Not Taken already, it flirts with, talks about, and certainly alludes to times we have to make decisions. And those decisions, in many cases, of course, we feel like dictate the rest of our lives, even though at the time they may not have felt like such a big decision. But I need to take a few moments to really delve into this poem and take a few moments to study just a few words in it. Because anytime you hear somebody read this poem, for example, at a graduation, they probably aren't reading it as though they should. So let's take a few moments to take a look at Robert Frost's poem here. I'm going to read it for a few moments, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to make some claims about it that hopefully you'll buy. And lastly, I'm going to highlight some words within the poem itself that I think are particularly notable, that really help us understand what the poem is actually about. So as we read this poem, let's try to dispel with our understanding of what we think the poem is about, and let's look at what the words actually say. So this is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler. Long I stood, and looked down as one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, when many people talk about this poem, they immediately dive on these last few lines. Two roads diverge into a wood, last three, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. And that's a wonderful message. The message that we should go for the a path that is more resistant, the path that people have not gone to as many times as before, and those kind of things. But let's look back at the poem, because what the speaker says at the end is not what the speaker says earlier on. So the setup is we have these two roads in a wood, and we have to decide which one to go. We can all agree upon that. But let's get into the fun details right about here. So he's looking at which one to go, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. So it moves to where he can't see anymore. Then took the other, and look here, as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. But let's go back again. What did the two look like? There was one, and then there was one just as fair. That's starting to make us think that maybe they're a little more equal than we are told at the end. But let's go a little further. Let's make sure I'm not just misreading it just this one line. Because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for the passing there, had worn them really about the same. So these two roads, they are just as fair, and really the passing has worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. So let's look back at these two roads just one more time and remind ourselves how he describes them in the moment. Just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, had worn them really about the same, and they are equal. They equally lay. So when you read the first three stanzas of the poem, these two roads are basically the same. And the speaker chooses one and goes with it. Now let's hit the pause button. A lot of times people talk about this poem. They do what we talked about just a few minutes earlier, and that is they want to say that this is where you choose the road less taken. But let's look at the title of the poem. The title is simply The Road Not Taken. Frost does not suggest he took the less taken path, or the speaker takes the less taken path. It's just simply the road not taken. Now, let's go to this last stanza, because this is where the confusion comes in. So I'm going to make a claim, and let's see if I can back myself up. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. When's he going to tell this story? When is he going to tell the story? He should be telling it with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence, a long time from now. Let's assume when he's old. Let's say an old man for that matter, but regardless, a long time from now. And when he tells the story a long time from now, how's he going to tell the story? He's going to tell the story as though he took the one less traveled by. But that's not true. He took the one that was just as fair, that had been worn really about the same. Now, why is this confusion? Why is this disconnect happening? Well, here's my argument quite simply. When it's been ages and ages hence, we look back upon decisions we make, and many times we want to make ourselves the hero of the story. So what do? We take the one less traveled by, at least when we look back, right? And there's something else kind of interesting too. Why does he repeat the word I twice here? He certainly doesn't have to. We know who he's talking about. We know what he means, but why does he repeat himself there? Perhaps to sort of give himself a little strength, to recalculate how it is he wants to say it. Because I took the one less traveled by. It's as though he's sort of talking himself into it, perhaps. And that has made all the difference. Now, in fairness to the speaker, we look back and we can see small decisions that we feel like have become very big ones as we've gotten older and gotten further away from those roads that diverged in the wood. But take a look at this. When you really read the poem closely, you will see that the speaker has told us what we really should think about the two roads earlier. And that the later part of the poem is the speaker looking back, ages and ages hence. We hear jokes sometimes about how grandparents will tell us they walked to school uphill both ways in the snow, those kinds of things. There's a little truism to that. The little bit of truism, quite simply, is that I think when many of us look back upon decisions we've made, they have a lot more weight later than they did then. Or sometimes we want to be the heroes of our own story. And one way to make ourselves the hero of our own story is to say we took the one less traveled by. But really, they're about the same. When you read Frost, keep this in mind. Many times Frost gets misquoted as someone who's a little more simple than perhaps he really is. I enjoy this poem because of the complexity of the speaker. He's not easily understood, but that's what makes it interesting. That's what makes it a poem that's more than just a sing-songy piece about how we always must take the hard road, when in fact, in many cases, we take the road that's really about the same. With that said, continue your good reading of Robert Frost, and there's lots of other great things to look at, but I had to take a few moments with this poem to remind us that perhaps what we see at the end is not really what the truth is quite all the way.